Hi, this is Alex, and if you love music, well, you've come to the right place because we're all about albums. I know, what could I say? I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments on this one, but here goes. I will be dealing today with the greatest female singers of all time. However, as usual, I have a few caveats. Number one, I'm only going to be dealing with women in the 20th century. Why not the 21st century? Well, I think that enough years have not passed to be able to say with certainty where the women of the 21st century would rank in the all-time greatest female singers. So I'm going to limit it to the 20th century female singers. Also, I'm going to exclude all basically women who are considered rock singers. I will probably have a separate video in the future on the greatest female rock singers of all time. But today we're just going to be talking about pure singing, females with the greatest singing voices. Finally, I'm going to not include women of opera. Why? A couple reasons. Number one, mainly, I do not really follow opera singers. I know a few of them, but I do not have enough knowledge to be able to speak knowledgeably about them. Second, most of you out there also probably are not big opera fans. So for those of you who are opera fans, I apologize. This video will not pertain to you. But for those of you in the mainstream who are not big opera fans, well, here we go. When I thought about this, I thought this would be a daunting task. But after a few minutes, actually, the top three women just came to me really quickly. And when I thought about it, yeah, I thought they deserved to be in the five greatest female singers of all time. Number four and five, a little bit more, you know, figuring it out. I mean, there's a lot of really great female singers of the 20th century, but finally, I think I came to my decision. And after I looked at them and thought about them, I thought, yes, these are them. So here we go. Number five, we're going to do this in reverse order. The fifth greatest female singer of all time, I chose Eva Cassidy. Now, for those of you who have seen my prior videos, I have spoken about Eva Cassidy in the past. So who is Eva Cassidy? Well, she is a singer who died at a young age, at the age of 33. Eva would interpret songs in her own style. She sang songs of jazz, blues, and folk music. Eva died at an early age from cancer. Eva's singing talents became known posthumously. What happened was in the UK on the BBC Radio 2 station, a few of her songs were played, which were Fields of Gold as well as Over the Rainbow. These gained a popularity on the UK airways, and eventually the album Songbird, where those two songs came from, reached number one in the UK, and subsequently two more of Eva's albums reached number one in the UK. Now, over in the US, during Eva's lifetime, she had trouble finding a record label that would sign her. So her friend Chris Biondo said, why don't we just make a live album on our own? And that's what they did. On the evening of January 2nd and 3rd of 1995, they recorded an album in Washington, D.C. at a nightclub called Blues Alley. And the album came out and it was called Live at Blues Alley. This album originally contained 13 songs. It was a fine, strong performance, wonderful record. If you haven't heard it, you should check it out. However, on the 20th anniversary of the album, the record label released a 31 song album, and this was all the songs that she performed. Now, the January 2nd set was not available due to technical reasons, so basically what you're hearing on the Nightbird album, which contained 31 songs, is her second evening performance, and quite a performance it was. Remarkable in the fact that Eva had a cold that night, and yet you would never know it. Her voice is spectacular. You'd really love this record. Eva has a silky, smooth vocal with a soulful tone, and she has great expressiveness. I would recommend checking Eva's album Songbird first, and if you like that, then definitely pick up her Nightbird album. It's quite spectacular. I love it. And as a bonus, her album Nightbird is fantastic sounding. It's one of my best sounding albums I own, and maybe the best sounding live album I've ever heard. So there's my fifth pick, greatest female singer of all time, Eva Cassidy. Well, who's my number four greatest singer of all time? Well, she grew up in Brooklyn, and she grew up with a mother who had a great singing voice and who was sort of a semi-professional singer. And I'm talking of none other than Barbra Streisand. Barbra got her inspiration and her love for singing and performing when she recorded a tape with her mother at the age of 13 years old. At high school, Barbra sang in the choir, and believe it or not, one of her choir member classmates was none other than Neil Diamond. I kid you not. She went to school with Neil Diamond. Barbra, after graduating high school, wanted to perform more than anything, and she quickly moved to Manhattan to take any job that was available to her to be able to perform and sing. Her first professional gig was at a nightclub called the Bonsoir Club. There, she not only honed her singing, but in between her songs, she perfected her rapport with the audience as she entertained them with many of her jokes, and the audience just loved her. Barbra got a job on Broadway in a musical comedy during this time period. Barbra became a regular on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson back in 1962 and 1963. There, Johnny called her a great young upcoming talent. She also was a guest on many other shows, including The Ed Sullivan Show, The Mike Douglas Show, as well as specials with Bob Hope. Barbra signed with Columbia Records and in 1963 released her first album called the Barbra Streisand Album. The album garnered 3 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. Barbra is one of the few artists to win an EGOT, that's an Emmy Award, a Grammy Award, an Oscar, and a Tony. Barbra won her Oscar for the performance as Fanny Brice in the film Funny Girl in 1968. Barbra had great commercial success in the 1970s. By the end of the decade, she had sold more albums than any artist with the exception of the Beatles and Elvis Presley. She had sold 150 albums worldwide in her career and had sold 68.5 million albums in the United States alone. This ties her with Mariah Carey for the most albums sold by a female artist. In 1985, Barbra released her Broadway album. This went to #1, and this won her a Grammy Award for Best Female Performance. Barbra is the only artist through her 6 decades of performance to have at least 2 #1 albums in each decade, which is truly remarkable. She has garnered notoriety like no other artist with the exception of Frank Sinatra. Barbra Streisand's voice is very recognizable. She has a mezzo-soprano vocal range. Barbra Streisand is a pop singer with operatic qualities due to her strength and quality of tone. I would check out her first album, which is called the Barbra Streisand album, but almost any of her early albums are fantastic, and I think you'd enjoy any of them. The other cool thing about listening to Barbra Streisand is, guess what? Your parents and probably your grandparents love Barbra Streisand as well. So for my number 4 pick, Barbra Streisand. So who's my number 3 pick? Well, she started singing gospel in church at the age of 8 in Detroit. Yes, we're talking about none other than Aretha Franklin. Aretha started her career with Columbia Records, but her career was not going anywhere, and then she signed with Atlantic Records in 1966, and a year later in 1967, she released one of her greatest albums ever, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. This album had a #1 R&B song with the title song, which went to #9 on the pop charts. Believe it or not, she had a larger hit on this album. It was penned by none other than Otis Redding, and it is her signature song, Respect. It went to #1 on both the R&B and the pop charts. The song Respect became a feminist anthem. Aretha has won 18 Grammy Awards, and she won 8 times in a row Best R&B Vocalist. She is one of the best-selling artist of all time, selling over 75 million albums. Aretha may be even best known for her live performances. You should check out her live performance at the Kennedy Center Honors, which was honoring at the time Carole King, and she sang "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman," and it was an amazing performance. So check it out if you haven't seen it already. She has had 17 top 10 hits and 20 number one R&B hits. In 1987, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she was the first female to be inducted. Rolling Stone magazine placed her as the number one greatest singer of all time in their magazine of 100 greatest singers. She truly has earned her title, Queen of Soul. Aretha had very moving, emotional vocals. It really made you feel like she was singing just for you. I would recommend checking out her first Atlantic record recording, which we already mentioned, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. So for my number 3 pick, Aretha Franklin. I know, maybe not high enough, but for me, number 3 all time. So my number 2 pick, who is it? Well, she's an often overlooked singer due to her quiet style. Also, she died at a young age, much like Eva Cassidy. She died at the age of 32. Who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Karen Carpenter. In high school, Karen joined the band, and there one of her classmates taught her how to play the drums. She went on to be a music major at Long Beach State and joined the choir. In the choir, where her brother also performed, the director thought that Karen's vocals were best suited for pop music, and he gave her vocal lessons for that. Karen formed a band with her brother and another musician, Wes Jacobs, and they were signed by RCA Records, where they recorded 2 instrumental albums. These, however, were not released. Then Karen was signed by A&M Records. The first album release was called Offering, later changed the name to Ticket to Ride due to the fact that the song Ticket to Ride, which they covered by the Beatles, reached number 54 on the pop charts. Other than that single, the album did not do very well. However, not to be discouraged, and against a lot of people telling him not to record another album with them, Herb Alpert loved Karen's voice and went on to record their second album called Close to You. Good thing he did. Close to You went on to do quite well for the Carpenters. The title song, I Long to Be Close to You, went to number 1 on the charts. There was another hit song on the album called We've Only Just Begun, and that reached number 2 on the charts. It's difficult to discuss Karen Carpenter singing without talking about her untimely death. She had an eating disorder, and this started back in high school where she dieted quite a bit. And in 1973, she saw a concert photo of herself and she thought she looked heavy in the photo. She started dieting even more, exercising more, started taking some thyroid medication, which she was abusing as well. She was abusing laxatives. Her eating disorder garnered national attention. And unfortunately, on February the 4th of 1983, Karen was found dead due to heart disease related to her eating disorder, anorexia nervosa. Karen's voice had a 3-octave range, believe it or not, even though all her hit songs were pretty much sang in her lower register contra-alto voice. Karen had lush and intimate vocals. She's one of those singers who can just make you cry by listening to her voice. She had an understated vocal, and she gave emotion to the words of the song by just a few vocal inflections and minute details that she sang. Rolling Stone placed her as number 94 on their top 100 singers of all time. Elton John was noted saying that Karen was one of the greatest voices of our lifetimes. Madonna said that she was influenced by Karen Carpenter. Karen is really a guilty pleasure for many of you out there, and as well as yours truly. So my number two greatest female singer of all time is Karen Carpenter. We're down to number one. And drum roll, please. Okay, so here we go. My number one pick for the greatest female singer of all time. She was born in Virginia way back in 1917. Yes, I'm talking about the great Ella Fitzgerald. Ella used to like to go out with her friends to Harlem to see acts at the Apollo Theater. Now, she had somewhat of a difficult life early on. Her mother and her stepfather died while she was young. She was sent to reform school but rebelled and left reform school and lived on the streets during the Great Depression. These events basically made her who she is and fed her with a lot of internal emotion, which she later would bring to her singing. She entered a amateur night at the Apollo Theater and she won the competition. Now, Ella was a very shy individual, but when she was on stage, she was fearless. She felt the love from the audience, and that is, I think, what she needed most. Ella was hired by a band leader by the name of Chick Webb in 1935. This is when she started touring and improving her singing abilities. During this time period, bebop became a popular form of jazz music, and this is when she started learning how to do scat singing. And she is known for her scat singing. And this type of singing is almost like she's an extra instrument in the orchestra. A little later on in 1938, Ella recorded a single, a nursery rhyme called A Tisket a Tasket, and that sold, believe it or not, 1 million copies. Ella then joined the Dizzy Gillespie Band where she was touring, and there she met the great bassist and her future husband, Ray Brown. Now, Ray Brown introduced her to what was to become her longtime manager and producer, Norman Granz. Norman Granz treated all his artists with great respect during the years 1956 through 1964. Ella recorded her famous and popular songbook series. Here she would record songs by one artist on an album. These musicians included Cole Porter, Duke Ellington, Johnny Mercer, Irving Berlin, and Rodgers and Hart. Ella has appeared on many TV variety shows. She has toured the world. She has recorded over 200 albums. And remarkably, she has appeared at Carnegie Hall 26 times. She has truly earned her nickname, the First Lady of Song. Ella is known for her great tone, being expressive, great enunciation, and a great ballad singer. Ira Gershwin once said of her that he never knew how good his songs were until they were sung by Ella Fitzgerald. Ella has sold over 40 million albums during her lifetime. She has won 13 Grammy Awards. She has toured the world. She has worked with all the greatest in jazz, including Duke Ellington, Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, Dizzy Gillespie, and Benny Goodman. I would recommend you listen first to her album from her songbook series, the ones by Rodgers and Hart or Cole Porter Songbook. These are truly great. And for a treat, if you'd like, and I've talked about this album before in my videos, the album entitled Ella and Louis, which is her teamed up with Louis Armstrong. This is a great record, and it has fantastic sound quality. Because of all this, I consider Ella Fitzgerald the greatest female singer of all time. Now, I know many of you are disappointed I didn't mention probably your favorite female artist, and you're like, how could he not mention so and so? Well, here's my honorable mention list. I would include it here Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Julie Andrews, yes, Julie Andrews, Billie Holiday, and Joni Mitchell. I hope that list included all your top 5 picks as well. And now for last video's unknown album. Again, we have a theme going, and the theme has to be greatest female singers of all time. The first album cover is Ella Fitzgerald, Like Someone in Love. This is a beautiful album. It was recorded during her songbook series, but this is different in that this album did not have one particular writer, composer, or musician. This had a lot of lesser known hits by other artists, and this is really a great album. You should check it out. Okay, the second unknown album is the Carpenters, singles 1969 to 1973, and the photo I showed is from the gatefold. We have here Richard Carpenter and his sister Karen, and I took the picture of Karen as the unknown album. Now, this album reached #1 in both the United States and on the UK on the charts, and this album contains all of their greatest songs. And now for this video's unknown album, the first unknown album. Okay, hope you got that one. The second unknown album. Great, hope you got that one as well. As always, this is Alex with All About Albums. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and remember, keep them spinning.